Hello everyone, welcome to the first lecture on numbers. So numbers is an important topic when it comes to various entrance examinations, especially CAT. And there are a couple of subtopics in the chapter on numbers. So I'm going to cover a few of them, and we are going to start with really basic things so that you have a basic foundation of things, and so that you can solve even the advanced questions with basics. First and foremost, what do you mean by a number? So a number is anything that represents a quantity. It quantifies whatever we are talking about. If you talk about types of numbers, we have real numbers and imaginary numbers. So imaginary numbers are basically those numbers that do not, that cannot be thought about. So they are numbers, but you don't really know what they mean. For example, uh, if you take an under root of a negative number, so under root of negative number is not defined. So that is a number. Uh, for example, if you take under root of -1, that is denoted as iota in mathematical language, but it does not mean anything. So for example, if you have a number, say 4 plus 6i, that is an imaginary number. This is called the real part of it, and this is called the imaginary part of it. Imaginary numbers are not a part of CAT examination, so we are just going to focus on real numbers. Real numbers are those numbers which are not imaginary. They have some significance, and real numbers can be further divided into rational and irrational numbers. Now, what do we mean by rational numbers? Any number that can be denoted in the form p by q, where q is not equal to 0, is known as a rational number. All the other numbers that cannot be denoted in this form are irrational. For example, pi, the value of which is 3.14, so on. So this number does not terminate. It is not a rational number because it cannot be represented in the form p by q, where q is not equal to 0. You can try, but you won't find any such representation of this number. Some other numbers, irrational numbers, are under root of 2, under root of 3. All of these numbers are non-terminating and non-recurring, and they are irrational numbers. Further, if we divide rational numbers, we have integers and fractions. Integers are numbers, so any number can be written in the form a, b, c, d, and so on, whatever, and then dot, and then e, f, g, h, and so on, whatever. So this is known as the decimal part. This is known as the non-decimal part of the number. If the decimal part of the number, which is this, is 0, it is called an integer. If this is non-zero, it is a fraction. So all the numbers such as 2, 3, 4. So these are basically what? 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and so on. These are integers. And integers can further be divided into negative and whole, negative integers and whole numbers. Negative integers are basically -1, -2, -3, and so on. Whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So all the non-negative integers are whole numbers. So whole numbers, in questions you might have, the question might say that we have some whole numbers, or it might say that we have non-negative integers. Both of them mean that you have integers starting from 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. If you exclude 0 and you start with 1, you are left with natural numbers. So natural numbers are basically 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Natural numbers does not include 0, while the set of whole numbers includes 0. This is the only difference between natural numbers and whole numbers. So apart from integers, you have fractions. Fractions could be proper, improper, or mixed fractions. So a fraction is basically a by b. Proper fraction is where a is less than b. Improper fraction is where a is greater than b. And mixed fractions are of the form A C by B by C. So you might have seen at times that numbers that some fractions are written as 2 1 by 4, which is basically nothing but 4 into 2 plus 1, which is 9 by 4. So number could be written as 9 by 4, and the same number could be written as 2 1 by 4. If it's written as 2 1 by 4, it's a mixed fraction. If it is written in the form 9 by 4, it is an improper fraction. So improper fractions can be written in a mixed fraction format, or and vice versa. That is, mixed fractions could be written in an improper fraction format. All right. So this slide might seem very trivial to some of you, but it's really important to keep in mind the definitions, because in questions um, you might have statements saying find the number of natural numbers that exist such that, and then you are given some restrictions, or it might say find the number of whole numbers such that. So you basically need to know what natural numbers are, what whole numbers are, what non-negative integers basically means, what non-positive or positive integers basically means, what irrational numbers are, and what rational numbers are. Now we have even and odd numbers. So basically, when you do some operations on even and odd numbers, you get a particular result, and the result could be even or odd. This again might seem trivial, but it's very useful. It is very basic, but it comes in really handy in a lot of questions. We'll see one of those questions in the next slide. So basically, if you add two even numbers, you get an even number, right? You have 2 plus 4, you get 6. You add 4 plus 8, you get 12. All of these numbers are even. And if you subtract an even number from an even number, again, you get an even number. Similarly, if you add two odd numbers, 1 plus 3, you get 4, which is an even number. And if you subtract two odd numbers, 1 minus 3, you get minus 2, which is an even number. If you add an even number and an odd number, you get an odd number. 1 plus 4, you get 5, which is odd. And similarly, if you subtract an odd number from an even number, or if you subtract an even number from an odd number, you get an odd number. If you multiply two even numbers, you get an even number. If you multiply two odd numbers, you get an odd number. If you multiply an even and an odd number, you get an even number. So basically, in multiplication, if at least one of the numbers is even, then the result is going to be even. Only when both the numbers that are being multiplied are odd will you get an odd result. And in terms of addition and subtraction, if you have addition or subtraction of two even numbers, you get an even number. If you have the addition or subtraction of two odd numbers, you get an even number. Only when you are adding or subtracting one even number and one odd number do you get an odd number. So you need to keep this in mind. So pertaining to this, let us look at a question in the next slide. The question says, let x, y, and z be distinct integers, where x and y are odd and positive, and z is even and positive. So basically, x and y are odd and positive integers, and z is even positive integer. Says which one of the following statements cannot be true. So here, if you apply what we went through in the last slide, the question becomes really easy. So here you have x minus z. X is what? Odd. Z is what? Even. So odd minus even is always odd, which we looked at in the last slide. Correct? So this number is odd. And then you multiply it with x square. X is odd. The square of any odd number is odd. because you're multiplying two odd numbers. Odd into odd is odd. So odd, this is odd, this is odd. Now this multiplication that is odd into odd is also odd. Question says this is odd. So this one is correct. This option is correct. It's not false. Now coming to this option B, x is odd minus z. Z is even. Then you multiply it with y. Y is odd. So this gives you odd minus even, which is odd, into odd, which is odd. And then odd into odd is odd. This is odd. So this is also not false. In the third option, you have x, which is odd, plus y, which is odd. And then you have a cube of that. And then you have z. Z is even. So since we looked, as we looked at in the last slide, if you're multiplying two numbers and at least one of them is even, then the result is even. You don't have to solve this. Anyways, this is going to be even. Odd plus odd is even. And even cube is even. So this will be even. And this is even. So even into even is even. But you don't have to solve this, because if you're multiplying two numbers and at least one of them is even, then the result is even. This is even, which is also correct. Coming to the fourth option, x, which is odd, minus z, which is even, square into x, which is odd. Now odd minus even is odd, and then we have to do a square of that, and after that we have to multiply it with another odd number. So square of odd is odd, because odd into odd is odd. And then you have the second odd number. You're multiplying two odd numbers, the result of which is odd again. So this is odd. The option says this is even, which is false. So the question says which of the following statements cannot be true. This cannot be true. So the answer is D option. So as you might have realized, this question becomes really easy if you use these formulae. Now coming to prime numbers. So any number which is greater than 1 and is divisible by only 1 and the number itself is a prime number, right? So any number which is greater than 1 and has only two factors, which are 1 and the number itself, is a prime number. All the other numbers are composite except for 1. 1 is neither prime nor composite, because the definition of a prime number is it should be divisible by only 1 and the number itself and should be greater than 1, which 1 is not. And the definition of composite numbers is that a composite number should have more than two factors, including 1 and the number itself, which 1 does not have. So 1 is neither prime nor composite. All the other numbers are either prime or composite. Some examples of prime numbers are 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and so on. The factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Factors of 3 are 1 and 3 only. Factors of 5 are 1 and 5. Factors of 7 are 1 and 7. Factors of 11 are 1 and 11. So all the other numbers, that is those that have 3 or more divisors, including 1 and the number itself, are called composite numbers. That is, they are divisible by at least one number other than 1 and the number itself. So all of the other numbers like 4 or 6 or 8 or 9 or 10, all of these are composite. Factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. Factors of 6 are 1, 3, 6. Factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, 8. So all of these numbers have at least one other number as a divisor other than 1 and the number itself. 1 is neither prime nor composite because it doesn't follow either of the definitions. Now there's a note over here which says all prime numbers greater than 3 can be represented in the form 6k plus minus 1, while vice versa is not true. So all prime numbers greater than 3 they can be represented in the form 6k plus minus 1. For example, if you take a prime number greater than 3, which is 5, it can be represented in the form 6 into 1 minus 1. 1 is basically k. The value of k is 1 over here. So 6 into 1 minus 1, this can be represented in the form 6k plus minus 1. Another number 7 can be represented in the form 6 into 1 plus 1. If you look at 11, this can be written as 6 into 2 minus 1. Here the value of k is 2. Another prime number 13 can be written as 6 into 2 plus 1, and so on. So all prime numbers that are greater than 3 can be written in the form 6k plus minus 1, whereas vice versa is not true, which means that if you have a number that can be written in the form 6k plus minus 1, it is not necessary for that number to be prime. Okay, if you take the number 25, this can be written in the form 6 into 4 plus 1. Here the value of k is 4. Now 25 can be written in the form 6k plus minus 1, but 25 is not prime. We know that the factors of 25 are 1, 5, 25. So apart from 1 and 25, 25 has a third factor, which is 5. So 25 is not prime, even though it can be written in the form 6k plus minus 1. Hence, the statement that vice versa is not true. Now, test for prime numbers. For smaller numbers such as 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 23, 19 is also there. For all of these numbers, we know they are prime, right? But what about larger numbers, very large numbers, 3-digit numbers? If you have to check for if you have to check if they are prime or not, what do you do for these numbers? Because for smaller numbers, you can always check if you have a third divisor other than 1 and the number itself. But for larger numbers, you can't just go on trying to find a divisor for that number for all the numbers that are smaller than that number. So there is a test for prime numbers. So how do we find if a number x is prime or not? The first step is to find the square root of that number. And then, for example, if you are checking for a number x, you are checking if that number is prime or not. You find under root of x. And then for all prime numbers ranging from 2 to under root of x, you test for divisibility of x with all of those numbers. For example, if you have a number, say 101, you want to check if 101 is prime or not. You find the under root of 101, which is 10 point something. So basically you find the smallest, the largest integer that is smaller than this number, which is 10. And you check for divisibility of 101 for all prime numbers ranging from 2 to 10. So you check for divisibility of 101 with 2, 3, 5, and 7. 101 is divisible by 2? No. Is it divisible by 3? No. Is it divisible by 5? No. Is it divisible by 7? No. So 101 is a prime number. You don't have to check for divisibility of 101 with all the numbers from 2 to 100. So this is a test for divisibility of a number. Similarly, for any other number, say you want to check for divisibility of 421. You want to check if 421 is prime or not. You find the nearest square root integer for this number, integral square root for this number. So we know under root of 400 is 20 and 21 square is 441. So under root of 421 will be 20 point something. Now you check for divisibility of 421 with all prime numbers from 2 to 20. All the prime numbers from 2 to 20 are 2, 3, 5, 7. Then you have 11, 13, 17, and 19. You check for divisibility of 421 with each of these numbers. If it is not divisible by any of these numbers, that means it is a prime number. So this is basically a test for prime numbers, for checking if a number is prime or not, and this is mainly used for larger numbers. Now we have conversion of recurring decimals into fractions. So what is a recurring decimal? Recurring decimal is a number. It is a decimal number which has uh, digits that are repeating after the decimal point. So there could be two types of these numbers. One could be where starting with the decimal point itself, the numbers are repeating. So 0.23, 23, 23, 23, and so on. This is a recurring decimal number. Another kind that we could have is 0.175, 75, and so on, where the 75 part is repeating and the 1 part is not repeating. Here the 2 3 part is repeating, so all the whole part after the decimal is repeating, and over here only some part of this of the part after the decimal is repeating. So how do you convert these numbers into fractions? Fractions are what? Fractions are of the form p by q. So basically, how do you convert these numbers in the form p by q? Firstly, we'll look at the method of doing this, and then from that, we'll derive a formula which makes it really fast for you to convert recurring decimal numbers into fractions. So if we take a number, if we take our first number as 0.2323, so this is 0.2323 and so on. Then you multiply it by 10. 10 is what? 2.32323 and so on. You see that this part and this part are different. So you again multiply by 10 and this becomes 100A. This becomes equal to 23.2323 and so on. Now you see that the original number, which is A, and the number that we finally have, that is 100A. These two numbers have the same parts that are repeating after the decimal. So what you do is you subtract these numbers so as to completely remove the decimal part. So you do 100A minus A, which is 99A, and that becomes equal to 23.2323 minus 0.2323, which is 23, and you get A as 23 by 99. So basically this is what we mean by conversion of a recurring decimal into a fraction. A becomes 23 by 99 and A is also 0.2323, and that recurs infinitely. So for any number where the whole part after the decimal repeats, what you do is, in order to convert that into a fraction, you write the part that is repeating. So you write the repeating part once and you divide that with as many nines as the number of digits that are repeating. So you can quickly convert a recurring decimal into a fraction using this formula. But don't forget how we got this formula. So in this question where A is 0.2323, what you do according to this formula is you write the repeating part once. Repeating part is 23. And then you divide it by as many nines as the number of digits that are repeating. So 2 and 3 are repeating. So we have two digits that are repeating. So you write 9 twice. So this is the fractional form of the decimal 0.2323. Now if we have a number of this form, so you have x as 0.17575, 0.75, and that repeats indefinitely. So basically x can be written as 0.175 bar. So this bar is basically, the bar basically means that the part over which we have a bar repeats infinitely. So we have x as 0.175 with a bar over 75. If you multiply it by 10, you get 10x is equal to 1.75. Right now, the decimal part in this number and in this number are not same. So you multiply it with 10 one more time, you get 100x is equal to 17.5757 and so on. Now again, this is 175, this is 75, and this is 57. So again, you don't have a common decimal part. So you multiply with 10 one more time, you get 1000x is equal to 175.7575 and so on. Now if you see in 10x, you have 10x is 1.75 bar, and you have 1000x equal to 175.75 bar. You have a common decimal part. So you subtract these two numbers, you get 990x is equal to 174, right? And as a result, x becomes 174 by 990. So basically, this is the fractional form of the number, of this number. If you see, what you have essentially done in this case is you have written the whole number once. So you have written the recurring and non-recurring part once, and you have subtracted the non-recurring part once. Right, and then you have divided it by, firstly you have as many nines, as number of recurring digits, followed by as many zeros as number of non-recurring digits. This is what you have essentially done in this case. So if you look at this formula, the recurring and non-recurring part written once in this is 175. Then you subtract the non-recurring part once. The non-recurring part is 1. 1 is not repeating, that is the non-recurring part. Then you write as many nines as the number of recurring digits. The number of recurring digits is 2, 7 and 5. So you write 9 twice, and then you follow that by as many zeros as the number of non-recurring digits. The number of non-recurring digits is 1. You have 1 over here, which is just 1 digit. So you write 1 0. So this is basically 174 by 990. You can choose to use this method or this method while doing this, or you could directly use these formulae. Just remember how we got these formulae, so you don't have to mug them up. It becomes really easy to even derive the formula in a few seconds, if you don't exactly remember the formula. But that happens only if you know how you got that formula. So you can do using this method, or you can just remember these formulae. Remembering the formulae saves a lot of time, especially this formula.